Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the shadow behind the green door, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing in whispers in the fog is ever what it seems. On a night heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth and saturated shadows, the eerie tolling of a distant clock echoed through the grand halls of the old manor, like a funeral chime. It was here, beneath the flickering candlelight, casting elongated silhouettes on the walls, that the air shifted, crackling with the tension of unspoken fears and concealed truths. Not far from the crackling hearth, a scream pierced the fragile atmosphere, fragmented yet sharp, followed closely by the muffled thud of a body hitting the ground. Dinner, arrival accompanied by violence. In that instant, Hercule Poirot, the celebrated detective known for his remarkable intellect and methodical approach, found himself drawn into the chaos. He had only recently been enticed to this isolated estate, invited to the mysterious gathering by the illustrious Lady Marguerite, whose wealth was rivaled only by the whispers of her troubling past. As he entered the dimly lit drawing room, he observed the panicked expressions of the assembled guests, their voices overlapping in a maelstrom of confusion and dread. "What has occurred?" he inquired, his voice smooth yet firm, cutting through the cacophony. Three figures stood at the heart of the chaos. Lady Marguerite herself, her elegant facade shattered. Charles Hawthorne, a volatile art dealer known for his ruthlessness, and Clara Emerson, a seemingly timid governess whose innocent demeanor belied a depth of sorrow. Each one bore a secret, a shadow lurking just beneath the surface of their carefully constructed self-images. Lady Marguerite's eyes, usually filled with a spark of cunning wit, flickered with fear. "It is Lucien! He is dead!" she stammered, her voice trembling. Lucien Devereux, a valuable and controversial associate of Lady Marguerite, lay lifeless at her feet, his face ashen, eyes wide in shock, an image carved into Poirot's mind. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured softly, his sharp mind racing. He felt the energy shift in the room, a palpable layer of tension that enshrouded each suspect. With subdued elegance, he began his investigation, the fiery storm outside mirroring the escalating storm of emotions within. As darkness enveloped the night, Poirot engaged each character in conversation. He began with Lady Marguerite, her brittle composure faltering under the intensity of his scrutiny. "I found him here, slumped, lifeless. We had quarreled earlier, of course, but—" She hesitated, fingers clenching around a silver necklace that glimmered faintly in the darkness. Poirot noticed the tension in her grip. It spoke of guilt or fear, perhaps both. Then his attention shifted to Charles Hawthorne, whose quicksilver-like temperament flickered visibly as he paced the room. "Lucien had the gall to undermine me in our last dealings," he spat vehemently, his eyes darting toward the window, as if expecting guilt to creep through the darkened glass. Yet it was Clara Emerson, the governess, who intrigued Poirot most. She stood apart from the group, a reflection of vulnerability, yet a storm brewed in her eyes. "I only wanted to protect them," she muttered, her voice barely rising above a whisper. The words echoed, laden with meaning. Intrigued by her veiled motivations, Poirot leaned in closer. "Protect who, chère mademoiselle? Was it the bereft Lady Marguerite, or the rambunctious Charles Hawthorne?" That question seemed to alter the atmosphere. Clara's defensiveness sprouted like thorns, yet her expression softened as if the weight of untold grief bore down upon her. A collective silence blanketed the room, suspended in time as Poirot considered their alibis, their desires, and the clouds of suspicion hanging over them. As the investigation unfurled over the hours, Poirot's mind danced through possibilities, red herrings lurking beneath the surface. The body had been discovered near a single flickering lamp that had gone dark moments before the scream. "Curious," mused Poirot, eyes narrowing. One extinguished flame amidst utter chaos. It offers a clue to unravel. But suspicion was as slippery as the storm outside, And as emotions tangled further, Poirot felt the tension weaving between the guilty and the innocent, with each comment morphing into a delicate thread of intrigue. As dawn began to dissolve the shadows, he gathered the suspects once more, intending to illuminate the truth. "Ah, madame and monsieur," he began, his voice laced with a sophistication that commanded attention. "The truth is seldom straightforward. However, as my little gray cells engage, I perceive the intricate patterns that bind your destinies together." He paused, watching their expressions shift from sullen uncertainty to dawning realization as he unveiled the first twist. Evidence of an affair between Clara and Lucien, a heated passion cloaked in secrecy. But just as he steered them toward the ultimate conclusion, the clouds unfurled above his head. A sudden revelation hit him like raindrops. Falling upon parched soil, the tragic undercurrent of jealousy and betrayal enveloped them. It was here that Poirot revealed the second twist that turned all previous perceptions on their heads. Lucien had threatened to expose Lady Marguerite's dark past, sins that would unravel her carefully woven tapestry of wealth and power. Yet it was the intertwining fates of Clara and Lady Marguerite, born from a shared love and a desire for vengeance, that shattered all illusions of innocence. Each of you harbored motives more profound than simple disdain or desire, Poirot finished, voice low yet filled with gravity. But the deepest betrayal took place not among you, but within the nature of your own hearts. As silence hung like a storm cloud, the weight of Poirot's final revelation sunk deep into their souls. Lady Marguerite, with tears cutting through her defiance, revealed it was she who orchestrated Lucien's demise through malicious intricacies, unwilling to let her life shatter again. In Anidor, a world steeped in regret and shattered dreams, betrayal bore a painful consequence. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the slate-gray clouds outside, their significance hung heavily within the parlor, transcending mere illumination, a bitter awakening to a world tainted by lies. Poirot stepped closer to the window, his eyes gazing into the distance. It is a pity, is it not? People wish to evade their own truths, but they forget. Truth has a way of sneaking back, always. With that, he turned back to the circle of revealed hearts, leaving them not with solace, but with the bleak specter of their concealed pasts uncovered, haunting them like the dim candlelight that flickered grimly in the corner of the dark room. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. The clock struck midnight, its chime echoing ominously through the ancient corridors of the manor, where shadows danced upon the walls like specters, feeding on the last dwindling candlelight. Outside, the storm raged, rain slashing, against the windows obscuring the once clear view of the moon, a fitting backdrop for the grim scene unfolding within. In the midst of this purgatory of darkness, a desperate cry shattered the stillness, reverberating through the estate like a mournful sigh of the past. It was a cry that summoned Hercule Poirot, whose keen intuition sensed that the night held more secrets than mere thunder and rain. Entering the library, a sanctuary adorned with rich mahogany and velvet drapes, Poirot took stock of the chaotic tableau before him. There, sprawled across the Persian rug, lay the lifeless body of Edward Thorne, a prominent banker, his eyes wide open in eternal surprise, as if the undercurrents of his life had culminated in the ultimate betrayal. The evidentiary disarray surrounding the body, an overturned chair, a broken glass glistening like shards of deceit, only served to deepen the pall of foreboding that hung in the air. 3 figures stood nearby, their expressions a cacophony of shock, sorrow, and something else, something darker. Lady Cressida Thorne, Edward's wife, stood with her hand pressed to her heart, a picture of exquisite composure, but the sheen of her porcelain skin belied an inner turmoil. Her husband had recently come into possession of a secret that could ruin everything, and whispers suggested she had been desperate to keep it buried. To her left was Samuel Reed, Edward's business partner, whose sallow complexion and trembling hands offered a stark contrast to his typically assertive demeanor. A man of ambition, Samuel's career path seemed irrevocably intertwined with Edward's decisions, making him vulnerable to suspicion. And finally there was Iris Bennet, whom Edward had always referred to as his muse. The talented artist, known for her ethereal paintings, bore an expression of sorrow that felt all too genuine. but her close ties to Edward raised questions about their hidden depths. "Mon ami, what a tragic turn of fate," murmured Poirot softly to himself, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts as he surveyed the scene. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things," he mused, already piecing together motives within the shadows. "I must unravel this tapestry of grief and guile." As the storm continued to rage outside, Poirot approached Lady Cressida first, his sharp gaze disarming yet gentle. "Madame, how do you explain this dreadful event? What transpired on this night that has turned to chaos?" Lady Cressida's voice wavered, but her features betrayed no remorse. "We had an argument," she confessed, glancing toward her husband's body with a mixture of sorrow and irritation. "He accused me of infidelity, but Edward was always making accusations, never trusting." The way she clenched her chin hinted at anger barely suppressed, yet beneath it lay an essence of profound loss. Poirot watched her closely, noting the flickers of emotion that coursed through her steel-like composure. Next he turned his attention to Samuel Reed, who seemed to shrink beneath the weight of Poirot's scrutiny. "Samuel," he began, his tone smoothing over the edges of tension, "you were last to see Edward before his demise." Samuel swallowed hard, eyes darting nervously. "We discussed our investment strategies, Poirot. It was all business, until he lashed out, blaming me for everything that was wrong in his life," he exclaimed, desperation lacing his voice. "I would never harm him, I swear it." Yet Poirot noted the way Samuel's hands shook slightly, betraying anxiety that contradicted his words. Poirot's final interrogation was reserved for Iris, whose gentle visage seemed untouched by the horrors around her. "Mademoiselle, your bond with the deceased is known throughout society. Pray tell me your sentiments regarding Edward's unfortunate departure," he urged, his voice velvet soft but probing. Iris's eyes shimmered as she replied, "He inspired much in my art, but Edward was a complex man. There were layers beneath. His charm, darkness that I often felt compelled to capture in my works. Our relationship, it was never simple." Her response, while seemingly innocuous, sparked a question that danced tantalizingly at the edge of Poirot's mind. As the investigation deepened, Poirot gathered the three suspects once more under the dim glow of a solitary lamp, its flicker mirroring the wavering truths they all concealed. He began to outline his findings, the air thick with tension. "Dear friends, I find myself intrigued by the interplay of motives here. Jealousy blooms in unexpected gardens." He paused, gauging their reactions, as each exchanged furtive glances. "Lady Cressida, your argument with Edward was no doubt a defining moment. However, it is curious that you had coincidentally prepared a letter for Edward, detailing the ruin of your shared finances, is it not?" Lady Cressida gasped, her face draining of color. But before she could retort, Poirot pressed on. "And Samuel, a man caught amidst a tangled web of financial duress and personal rivalries, hints at dissatisfaction more than mere friendship." Samuel's brow furrowed deeply, but Poirot was unyielding. "Yet it is you, Mademoiselle Iris, who possess the brush to paint a portrait of truth that eludes the others. A muse can inspire passion, but also destruction." Poirot noticed a shift in the room, the atmosphere thickening with apprehension. Each suspect bore the weight of implications, yet there remained a lingering incongruity that danced just out of reach of his understanding. He was missing a vital clue, a spark to ignite the flame of revelation. Just as the storm outside reached a crescendo, a newfound clarity struck Poirot. The broken glass on the floor began to resonate in his mind, and he recalled the shattered remains of a long-forgotten past. A broken promise between Edward and Iris. "Ah, but wait a moment. Was it not you who had stumbled upon a painting? An illicit reminder of a forgotten love affair that could unravel everything, no?" he said, his tone turning clipped as he honed in on Iris's shocked expression. And here lay the final twist. It was indeed Iris who possessed the means to leverage Edward's secret, which threatened to tear apart both Lady Cressida's stable marriage and Samuel's ambitions. The artist had stood to gain far more from Edward's misfortune than either of them could fathom. A red herring had misled Poirot throughout the night, obscuring Iris's true motives beneath the facade of artistry. Yet it was you, Lady Cressida, who had orchestrated the events to frame him, was it not? Poirot turned, revealing the tangled web of emotion that had bound them all to the tragedy. You illuminated his sins, buried the man whose secrets would have ended your reign in prosperity. As the final pieces clicked into place, the weight of guilt settled upon the air. Betrayal echoed through the hearts of those involved. Poirot stepped back, letting the revelations cascade like the rain outside, each drop a reminder of their collective indiscretion. In life, when the shadows of deception dance with the light of desire, the truth becomes a blurred reflection. You wish to silence a heart forever beating against your carefully laid plans. With the dawn creeping into the windows, illuminating the once dark corners of the room, Hercule Poirot spoke his final words, heavy with poignant realization. One's greatest adversary, mes amis, resides not in the darkness that surrounds us, but in the echoes of our own hearts that refuse to be stilled. And as the first rays of sunlight breached the horizon, the whispers of their dark secrets began to lose their power, leaving only the haunting silence of unchangeable fate. Chapter 3. The Owner's Disappearance. The howling wind outside rattled the old manor, like a beast clawing at the foundations, while the storm unleashed fury upon the world. The faintest trace of candlelight flickered within the damp and shadow-laden corridor, casting sinister silhouettes that twisted and writhed along the walls. It was in this setting of desolation and dread that a sound, tremulous and haunting, pierced the ominous quiet. A woman's scream, echoing through the desolate halls and signaling a crime most foul. Hercule Poirot stood in the foyer, the echo of the scream resonating like a fractured chime in his ears. He had been summoned under the pretense of a missing person, a case he would soon discover had furrows of treachery, plowing deep through human souls. Before him lay the opulent home of the wealthiest magnate in town, Leon Addington, now missing under the cover of darkness, leaving behind a luxurious estate suffocated by unease. Three figures hovered near the grand staircase, their expressions a potpourri of shock, fear, and a hint of something darker. Something that twisted the truth like a vine ensnaring a delicate flower. Among them was Lady Vivian Brant, Leon's longtime confidant, who had chased ambition and influence within her golden cage. Yet her golden facade was marred by damp streaks of mascara from recent tears. "He simply vanished," she exclaimed, her voice a tremor coated in turmoil. "He was here, and then, gone." Next to her, Lord Frederick Dropkin, Leon's childhood friend, fumbled through his words with clammy hands. "We had just shared a drink, Poirot. It was amiable until he claimed to have made a revelation. Then he left without warning." A glimmer of something akin to anxiety flickered in his sharp eyes. Perhaps he recalled secrets better left unspoken. And finally there was Clara Jennings, the enigmatic housemaid whose placid demeanor belied the chaos encircling her. "I was cleaning the study when I heard him talking, raising his voice, and then—" "Nothing," she recounted. Her fingers trembled nervously as her dark hair fell in waves around her face. Poirot caught the slight hitch in her articulation. A telltale sign that layered beneath her calm surface lay a desperate fear. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami." Poirot reflected silently as he surveyed the trio, keenly aware that each bore suspicions thicker than the storm raging outside. He leaned forward slightly, his mustachio bristling with interest. "My dear friends, what secrets do you guard?" As the search for Addington commenced, Poirot motioned for the trio to lead him to the study, the site of the last known interaction before the unfortunate disappearance. Entering the room, the air hung heavy with remnants of cigar smoke, where the leather-bound tomes lined the mahogany shelves, standing stoically against the tide of insurrection. The desk was strewn with papers that hinted wildly at ambition. A plan for an audacious business venture, yet it was a single-frame photo that captured Poirot's attention. It depicted Addington, resplendent in his tailored suit, standing proudly next to Lord Frederick, each with a glint of youthful exuberance in their eyes. Yet, a shadow seemed to lurk behind them, a reminder of the precarious nature of friendship. Leon was attempting to create something monumental, Something to shape the town to his vision? Lord Frederick murmured, watching as Poirot circled the desk, his keen gaze dispassionately scanning every detail. Maybe he feared losing control, resulting in his sudden retreat, he suggested, but Poirot noted the slight tremor in his voice. Fear indeed plays a seedy role in humanity as the hour grows. Darker, Poirot remarked, his eyes narrowing. What specific secret loomed large enough to compel a man to run from his own home, I wonder? He turned his attention to Clara, who stood with her arms folded tightly across her chest, masking something unspoken. Mademoiselle Jennings, what sort of revelation did Monsieur Addington conjure that could unravel such a web? With a deep, steady breath, Clara hesitated briefly. He spoke of a betrayal, of a deal gone wrong, something about a hidden ledger, she ventured, the confession weighing additional layers of intrigue onto the tableau. Poirot seized upon her slip with fervor. How curious that none of you claimed to see Léon leave the estate, Poirot stated, an edge of challenge in his tone. Could it be, my dear Lady Vivian, that you were not as unaware as you profess? What of your relationship with him? I sense a tangle of emotions beyond just companionship. She gasped, a facade of innocence failing to mask her indignation. I cared for him beyond mere acquaintance. He was ambitious, and I supported him. Is it so strange to want to be part of his grand venture? If I may suggest, madame, you failed to mention that you had a hand in a business transaction with him that went ill, Poirot interjected. A loss that would prompt significant concern in your current lifestyle. As the conversation turned, Poirot felt as though he was traversing a labyrinthine maze, each turn revealing yet another layer of deception. He kept his mind open to the unfamiliar paths twisting beneath the surface, while watching each character react to the delicate play of emotions. As the night deepened, scenes began unfolding across the estate, unveiling further depths of betrayal. A hasty confrontation erupted between Lady Vivian and Lord Frederick, where hidden accusations flew like arrows, each laced with insinuations of theft and ruined lives. They were horrified when Poirot orchestrated pointed inquiries, compelling confessions, that revealed their own intricate deceptions. Clara silently absorbed the chaos, while her dark eyes shimmered with something elusive, the notion that she might know too much. And then, a thunderous crash echoed from the study, silencing even the storm outside for a brief moment. Poirot sprang to investigate, encountering the once pristine room cloaked in disarray, items strewn as if a confrontation had erupted. It was here he found it, a ledger emblazoned with Addington's initials tucked beneath an upturned armchair. Inside was a record of clandestine transactions and grim debts, a veritable Pandora's box of fears that had grown too large to contain, revealing unsavory alliances and questionable dealings, leading to life-altering threats. As Poirot meticulously dissected these pages, both Lady Vivian and Lord Frederick stepped into the study. Lady Vivian's face bled of color as she recognized the ledger. I had thought him foolish to cling to such dangerous secrets, she admitted, a mix of despair and relief washing over her features. No, madame, Poirot countered softly but firmly. He held courage within those shadows, enough to confront the two of you. Suddenly, something clicked into place. An undulating haze of betrayal and hidden truths unveiled before him. Poirot turned slowly, locking eyes with Clara, who mirrored an unexpected confidence. You knew all along, did you not? He asked, his voice a grave whisper. A housemaid? No, you are far more than that. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her composure did not falter. The truth hit him like the force of the tempest outside. Clara had once been Leon's trusted confidant, a mentor clad in ignorance. He had promised her a life shielded from chaos, and yet she betrayed him for the allure of revenge. You'd planned this, didn't you? To push the two of them against one another while you remained hidden. As the tempest grew, a revelation washed over Poirot. You were protecting something, precious from being destroyed. But it is your betrayal that propelled him into the maw of uncertainty. With dawning realization, Clara's expression shifted from fear to a calm resolution. Leon's ambition threatened me. I decided to send him into hiding before his own greed consumed him. But I never intended for him to truly disappear. The damning truth seeped from the shadows, and the storm raged on, a cacophony of chaos surrounding them, awakening deep-rooted fears. Poirot's eyes glimmered. With astonishment, only she could cloak malice in a guise of purity. With precision, he extracted pieces from the labyrinth of emotions entwined in betrayal, weaving them into a narrative that would ultimately resonate in the hearts of his audience. One's true nature reveals itself under the veil of darkness, yet only the remarkable choice to wield it can determine survival. As the final revelation settled upon them like an unrelenting fog, Poirot stepped back, allowing the growing dawn to creep into the room within the manor, illuminating not just the sprawl of chaos, but the very strands of their intertwined fates. Such is life, dear friends, that within the web of ambition and deceit, the heart's truest reflection reveals both sacred beauty and the deepest horrors. Chapter 4. A Hidden Room Revealed. The piercing wail of the wind swept through the manor like a banshee in anguish, echoing against the stone walls and stirring the shadows into unnatural shapes. It was within this tempestuous night, as the storm raged with a fury befitting the most dreadful of dramas, that Hercule Poirot found himself entwined in a web of intrigue thicker than the darkness outside. In the flickering light of a solitary candle, the shadows danced with an unsettling glee, whispering secrets that only the walls could remember. Abruptly, a chilling thud reverberated through the grand hallway, a sound that dictated an uneasy rhythm in Poirot's heart, compelling him to cross the threshold of uncertainty toward the source. The grandeur of the estate, once a bastion of wealth and prestige, now felt like a hollow tomb, mourning its vanished master, Leon Addington. Poirot surveyed the faces around him. Lady Vivian Brandt, her elegant demeanor marred by suspicion, Lord Frederick Dropkin, haunted by unshed remorse, and Clara Jennings, a paradox of innocence and concealed treachery. Each stood at the precipice of despair, their fates tethered to the enigma of a man who had vanished from the face of the earth. Mon ami, Poirot murmured, a furrow knitting his brow. The pieces of this puzzle lie scattered, yet they beg to be assembled. A mood of trepidation gripped the room as he turned toward the staircase, drawn by an inexplicable sensation, an uncanny calling that whispered to him from its depths. Ascending the steps, Poirot's senses heightened. It was not simply the echo of old wood beneath his feet or the tempest's howls that resonated. Rather, it was a faint, pulsing rhythm, like the heartbeat of the manor itself, beckoning him to uncover the concealed truths that lay hidden within its walls. So many places to hide, but so few places of refuge, n'est-ce pas? He mused aloud as he reached the second floor and found himself before a seemingly innocuous closet, its door slightly ajar as if inviting him to explore. A curious shimmer caught his eye, and instinctively he leaned closer to peer inside. The darkness coiled within suggested depths unknown, and a sudden surge of urgency mingled with his ever-present calm. Poirot took a breath, opened the door wider, and revealed a narrow staircase spiraling downwards. A staircase that could not have been mentioned in any previous conversation. Mon Dieu! He gasped, excitement pulsing through his veins. Both terror and exhilaration washed over him, revealing the secret this house had hidden so well. Without hesitation, he descended the steps into the darkness, his feet guided by the faint scent of musty paper and something far more sinister. With the candle illuminating only a sliver of the descent, shadows writhed ominously against the stone walls, daring him to retreat. Yet Poirot pressed onward, resolute in his pursuit of answers. At the bottom, he emerged into a small chamber, the air thick with an oppressive silence. Thick cobwebs clung to the corners, punctuated by scattered dust motes caught in the flickering candlelight. Against the far wall, a battered desk lay half-buried under piles of old documents, manuscripts of long-forgotten plans, and a trailing map that detailed obscure routes and coded messages. But it was the locked trunk in the corner that seized his attention, its rusted lock taunting him with the promise of secrets held dearly. "Ah, cher ami," he murmured, "what treasures and demons do you guard?" Returning to the main hall, Poirot summoned the three suspects, each of them visibly shaken by his discovery of the hidden chamber. "What do you make of this, madame? Et monsieur?" he inquired, gesturing toward the stairway. Suspicion hung thick in the air, like the aroma of impending rain. Lady Vivian's features twisted with faint recognition, her polished facade wavering. "That staircase, I had no knowledge of its existence," she asserted, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her calm. "Indeed," Poirot replied, his eyes narrowing contemplatively. "Yet one must ask, who among us would seek to bury such truths? What dread could be contained within that trunk?" As the tension escalated, Lord Frederick shifted uneasily, his loyalty now in question. I've heard rumors of a secret passage, one used long ago for clandestine dealings," he admitted, avoiding Poirot's discerning gaze. "Yet I dare not suggest it had any relation to Léon." Poirot's mind raced, piecing together fragments of buried ambitions layered with anxiety. Clara, watching the exchange with a guarded expression, finally interjected, her voice trembling slightly. "Léon was, he had plans. Men he dealt with that could turn dangerous. Perhaps he hid something to protect himself?" The revelation danced obscured between them like shadows on the walls, raising the stakes of their shared motives, feeding an environment ripe with deception. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot countered, a knowing glimmer in his eye. "In your haste to reveal truths, be wary of your own motives. Ambition is often a double-edged sword." The room fell silent, each suspect choosing their words carefully, the air dense with unspoken burdens. With the trunk's presence now looming over their interactions, Poirot motioned for a locksmith to be summoned, eager to unveil the secrets hidden within. Minutes stretched into an eternity of gnawing anticipation. When the key finally clicked, the lid creaked open like a demon released from confinement. In the glow of candlelight, they beheld a collection of valuable gemstones, each sparkling with deceptive allure. Alongside documents revealing shrouded bargains, evidence of collusion that implicated all three within the sordid tapestry woven by fear, jealousy, and betrayal. But only the betrayal of Clara struck a more profound chord, as she failed to conceal her earlier panic when confronted with the contents. "I merely wished to protect him," she cried out, raw emotions spilling forth in disarray. Yet Poirot's penetrating gaze implored her for further truth. "Protect him or keep him shackled to your whims, Mademoiselle Jennings. Ambition can twist even the purest of hearts." The true depth of manipulation unraveled before them, revealing Clara to be not the innocent underdog but the orchestrator of a far more sinister plan. To profit from secrets meant to remain hidden, leading to Léon's retreat into the shadows, his fate sealed in a torment of her making. As the orchestration of her betrayal became inescapably clear, Poirot stepped back, allowing the cold morning light to stream through the corridor, a chilling reminder of clarity emerging from chaos. "I have but one truth to impart," Poirot stated with solemnity, his voice resonating with the weight of revelations. "In this world, ambition fuels our desires, yet the very heart that seeks greatness unveils the darkness within." As dawn broke, its pale light rendered shadows powerless, illuminating not only the room, but the fractured ambitions entangled in betrayal. The storm outside began to abate, leaving behind a serene quiet, broken only by the soft shuffling of feet as Clara was led away, her plans now laid bare. And in that grave stillness, Poirot turned to his remaining companions, their bonds revealing themselves as fragile, forever altered by the revelations of the night, as he left them to ponder the tragic intersections of fate and humanity entwined in their hearts. Chapter 5. The broken clock strikes. A shattering cry pierced the night, reverberating through the desolate corridors of the Addington Manor. Achamarn, sound that resonated like a death knell for a life long ago, entwined with ambition and deception. Poirot's sharp intellect had barely settled after the revelations of the day before, when yet another tempest loomed on the horizon. Shadows danced eerily in the flickering candlelight, as if mocking the fragile nature of humanity itself. But it was the grim anticipation that clutched Poirot's chest, tightening like a noose, compelling him to investigate the pulsating dread at the manor's heart. As Poirot ventured further into the desolate hall, the faint ticking of an old clock resonated with an unsettling rhythm, its hands frozen in time at precisely midnight, a time that had once signified a pivotal moment now marred by tragedy. The clock's eerie silence underscored the somberness descending upon the remnants of the night, an uninvited specter manifesting in the shadows. Standing there, eclipsed by the emptiness, Poirot sensed the entanglement of people whose truths tugged at the fabric, of their despair and ambition. His mind whirled, attempting to decipher the latent connections lurking beneath the surface. He turned to Clara, who stood by the window, her face paled by the moonlight. "A dark cloud clings to you, Mademoiselle Jennings," he observed, his voice smooth yet probing. With a shiver, she glanced away, her thoughts seemingly adrift in the obsidian night. For all of her earlier bravado, she now appeared vulnerable, a moth caught in the destructive flame of her desires. What troubled her conscience, Poirot wondered, as he drew attention to the second suspect, Lord Frederick, who loomed nearby, his posture betraying unease as ominous reflections flickered across his features. Here stood a man shrouded in guilt and lost opportunities, a crippling regret intertwined with ambitions long unfulfilled. Yet that very hesitation masked something far more sinister, an untold betrayal simmering beneath courteous facades. Lastly, Lady Vivian, elegance personified, stood, apart from the turmoil, a surreal calm enveloping her. Poirot noted the slight twitch in her smile, as if rehearsed. She represented the embodiment of sophistication, yet his instincts told him her composure was a mere veneer, encompassing deeper turmoil. As if sensing his gaze, she turned slightly, her cool demeanor clashing starkly with the fury of the tempest outside. "Mon ami," Poirot mused inwardly, "the human heart, it shrouds its secrets in a cloak of civility, does it not?" Suddenly, a thunderous crash in the distance shattered the silence, drawing everyone's attention toward the grand staircase. There on the steps lay an object, a shattered porcelain figurine, pieces glistening like shards of lost innocence. Clara gasped, her face drained of color, while Frederick's brow furrowed with anxious concern. "Just an old relic," he muttered, bending to gather the fragments. "No need for alarm." Poirot, however, was captivated by the unsettling synchronicity of the incident. "A cruel omen, perhaps," he suggested, observing the way Clara averted her gaze. How closely she guarded her emotions, yet how easily her facade would slip, revealing the turmoil beneath. "Tell me, what does this broken figurine mean to you?" In the ensuing silence, Clara's hands trembled as she clutched a handkerchief, her fixation on the broken pieces betraying a tortured sentiment. "It was a gift from Leon," she whispered, the softness of her voice laden with myriad implications. "A keepsake of innocence now lost." "Ah," Poirot interjected, "but perhaps it speaks more than mere loss. It invokes fractured memories and unfulfilled desires." He regarded her for a moment before shifting his focus to Vivienne, whose poised expression faltered momentarily. "Tell me, Madame Brant, do you harbor any associations with this particular piece? Connections that might unravel networks hidden within?" Vivian's eyes narrowed, the corner of her mouth twitching as if caught in a web of thoughts too, tangled to articulate. "Not particularly," she replied tersely. "I hold no sentimental acknowledgement of the past, nor any broken relics that would stoke embers long extinguished." At that moment, the clock chimed once, an eerie toll that reverberated through the air, clashing with the chaos unfolding around them. In the fleeting pause, a singular notion flared in Poirot's mind, woven with hints of deeper connections forged in secrecy. As the investigation unfolded, Poirot pursued threads, expertly, gathering information from his unwilling suspects. He combed through the remnants of old letters and hidden compartments discovered in the hidden chamber beneath the staircase. Words inked across yellowed pages spoke of clandestine meetings and secret desires, each revelation compounding his suspicion. Frederick's glances were furtive, Clara's responses riddled with anxiety, and Vivienne's poised demeanor a deceptive shield against mounting truths. Yet in the labyrinth of deceit, the true motives lay obscured beneath layers of guilt and ambitions, twisting in careless endeavors. When Clara hinted at whispered conversations connecting Frederick to Leon's unsavory acquaintances, threads of suspicion tightened around the Lord, drawing him into the spotlight. But perhaps it's not he who sought vengeance but a scheme driven by absent loyalties, Poirot inquired, feigning innocence. As emotions boiled and accusations swirled, Poirot took a calculated step back, allowing the tension to swell like a storm building unseen. He stood before the broken clock, its hands stubbornly refusing to budge, reflecting the stasis of their destinies entwined in villainy. Then, as discussions escalated, a chilling revelation emerged. Frederick had indeed whispered Leon's secrets to Lady Vivian, thus lighting the fuse of future betrayals. But what if that betrayal was not truly his own? Poirot pondered inwardly, for the puzzle had not yet concluded. Just as certainty washed over him, a darker truth emerged, one hidden amid their web of deceit. A final realization that pierced his thoughts like a jagged blade. In an instant, the chessboard of motives shifted. "Ah, but there lies your flaw, dear friends," he pronounced, casting aside the veil of confidence they had so carefully maintained. "The true architect behind this tragedy is not one of you, but another, coordinating from the shadows." Clara's visage paled at the implication, her earlier confidence flickering like the candle flames now guttering. Before their very eyes, the depths of human ambition revealed themselves, and as Poirot laid bare the knots they had tied through manipulation and deceit, he summoned forth a simple yet profound truth. It is only when confronted with one's shattered ambitions that the darkest of desires unveil their true form. The clock chimed a solemn note as Clara's identity was revealed, the architect of her own downfall, actions ultimately betraying the very essence she sought to protect. Time, mes amis, shall unveil the truth even when it seems trapped in stasis. For in the brokenness of our ambitions, the heart reveals itself, a harbinger of both blossoming hope and enduring despair. As the dust settled in the ethereal silence, Poirot left his companions to reflect on the profound echoes of their final standoff, while the air grew thick with ominous reality. In the stillness that enveloped the manor, the storm outside began to subside, a dim melody of rain, mixing with the fading cadence of the clock. Life would continue, yet the shadows would always linger, forever cradled within the echoes of betrayal and impermanence. Chapter 6. The Vanishing Footprints. In the oppressive silence of the Addington Manor, where shadows clung to corners like guilty secrets, and silence reigned with an eerie authority, a scream shattered the night, a sound that echoed through the corridors like a bullet of despair. Clara Jennings, reeling in terror, clutched at the doorframe, her eyes wide with disbelief as she pointed towards the damp, darkened courtyard outside, where the remnants of a violent storm still lingered like a specter. It's gone," she gasped, her voice quaking with emotion as each breath seemed a cacophony of panic. "The footprints! They have disappeared!" Hercule Poirot stood poised in the candlelit drawing room, his sharp intellect racing to comprehend the significance of her distress. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things. "Mon ami," he mused, observing Clara's trembling hands, only highlighting her fragile facade. As he took a step closer, the remnants of the night's chaos unfurled before him, further entangling the threads of guilt and ambition that had already begun to unravel since his arrival at the manor. With the tempest abated, yet the air thick with tension, Poirot turned his attention to the three individuals who remained. Each was ensconced in their own turmoil, fuming in disparate corners of the room. Lord Uri, Frederick, with his hawkish features, presented an exterior of calm as clouds of guilt veiled his eyes. He had arrived at the manor cloaked in slicker arrogance, yet now his fingers drummed nervously against a mahogany table, betraying the anxiety that lurked within. Lady Vivian, her elegance sharpened by the dim candlelight, bore a delicate mask of composure that faltered as Clara's panic filled the room, a subtle flicker of concern that dissipated as quickly as it appeared. Finally, there was Alfred, the estate's loyal butler, whose face had grown grim as he listened intently. the unwitting witness to darker truths. "Do calm yourself, mademoiselle," Poirot said, his voice smooth yet commanding. "A missing set of footprints shall not lead us to despair, but may guide us to an even greater truth. Pray tell, what exactly led you to observe this?" "Vanishing feet." Clara's breath hitched as she recalled the scene. "I noticed them after the storm passed, prints leading from the garden towards her. The forest, a clear indication. There was someone lurking, someone who meant to harm Léon. I swear it, Poirot." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, the weight of guilt clinging to her like a wet cloak. Frederick, previously engulfed in his own thoughts, exploded forth with a fervor that made Poirot's brow arch. "Nonsense! We are merely grasping at straws, Clara. The storm could have obliterated any trace left behind. Have we not more pressing matters to focus upon?" "Pressing matters," Clara scoffed, her confidence renewed by the fervor of her accusation. "Léon's life and reputation lie in tatters. You best be mindful, Lord Frederick, for you're not the only one with ambitions lurking in the dark." Poirot observed the subtle shifts in their expressions, how the darkness expelled by the storm had seeped into their hearts, driving uncertain motives to the fore. "No, Mademoiselle Jennings, you are quite right," he interjected, keen to refocus their energies on the task at hand. "The storm has blurred paths and spirits, but it is our responsibility to discern the essence of what has transpired." Thus began Poirot's meticulous examination of the courtyard, a place now marred by the chaos of rain or something potentially more sinister. With each footfall, he made careful note of the impressions left upon the earth, for it was not just the absence of footprints that beckoned his senses, but the peculiar arrangement of the soil, disturbed here, compacted there. "Ah, what do we have here?" he mused aloud, kneeling to scrutinize an irregular indentation. Perhaps a small imprint left behind, one that spoke of anxiety and hasty departures. Each footprint may tell a story or even mislead us into tragic misunderstandings. As Poirot continued to probe, he sought out the presence of the other suspects still lingering. Alfred, the resolute butler, was quietly observing from a distance, while Lady Vivienne stood regally, masking emotions beneath a graceful veneer. "Madame Brant," Poirot ventured, his voice measured, "considering your resplendent grasp of social circles, you may know of others who could traverse these grounds with ill intent?" The lady's response dripped with artistry, a practiced charm. "Why, Monsieur Poirot? One would be surprised by the company one maintains. However, I assure you, I have no knowledge of anyone who would pose such a menace to dear Léon. Ambition, while a portentous grasp of humanity, must be managed with poise." As their conversation drifted, Poirot inwardly pondered the implications of stolen trust. With Frederick's anxious glances and Lady Vivienne's poised seduction, a dance of duplicity fluttered before him. They each concealed skeletons in their closets. He could feel the weight of deception thickening the air. As he gathered each fragment of the narrative, Poirot soon realized the missing footprints could act as both truth and deception. The tension swelled. Accusation broke like waves upon sharpened rocks. But within that sea of trepidation arose an undeniable reality. It was himself who had almost overlooked a vital detail. Voices rose and fell, entwined with speculation and rising panic, till finally he paused, drawing attention to the gathering weight of silence. "Ah, my friends, the true artistry of this mystery is not found within the chaotic elements of footfalls vanishing into air, but rather in their very absence, a calculated maneuver. Whichever of you hoped to disguise your guilt has played your cards clumsily." Turning to Frederick, Poirot pressed, "Your earlier indignation misleads us from the truth. Perhaps it is you, mired in your own regrets, who sought not just to erase the trail, but Léon himself, a rival in both love and ambition?" Gazes shifted uneasily as a hush blanketed the room, the ticking clock in the background echoing the cadence of their distraught hearts. And yet it was Clara's voice that shattered the suffocating atmosphere. "Frederick, you don't understand. I only wanted to protect Léon." Poirot could see through the cracks in her masquerade, the fervent desperation coiling around her words. And in that moment of revelation, of intense betrayal sparked into clarity, he articulated the truth that bound them all. Ah, Clara, you held the darker ambitions, the clandestine whispers that stirred the pot of chaos. In your steadfast pursuit of love, did you not carefully orchestrate a diversion of blame, seeking for life's cruel tragedy to favor your whims? All eyes swiveled towards Clara, who stood transfixed, her world collapsing as shivers ran down her spine. A beat passed amidst the reverberating truth before she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. But I loved him. Everything I did was to shield his heart. Poirot's gaze softened, yet remained resolute. Ah, but love can blind one to the cruelest of deceptions, mademoiselle. You believed you could play but one role upon this stage, yet the intertwining destinies have cast you in shadows far graver than we ever fathomed. With that, Poirot gathered the remains of the shattered truths, weaving each character's ambitions into a tapestry that led them unwittingly to mutual ruin. The storm had abated outside, yet the tempest within still raged, a narrative written in betrayal, emotions heavy like the remnants of rain-soaked earth. As Clara's inconsolable cries echoed through the quiet manor, Poirot's final thoughts hung heavy in the air. In the quest for love and power, we etch our paths in both light and shadow, forever binding us to the vanishing footprints of our own desires. His voice, a poignant echo of strength, flickered in solemnity as he departed, leaving them entangled within their manufactured fates, a cautionary tale scribed into the very fabric of their being. Chapter 7. The Portrait's Secrets. A blood-chilling scream reverberated through the grand halls of Addington Manor, piercing the heavy silence of the stormy night like a dagger. A sound of terror that reverberated ominously, echoing the secrets concealed within the manor's ostentatious walls. The flickering candle flames cast jittery shadows, dancing as if in terror of the dark truths held captive by a haunting portrait hung prominently in the drawing room. Hercule Poirot, in his ever-dignified manner, moved toward the source of the scream with an innate sense of urgency, but a mind finely tuned to observation. He recalled the dusty old painting that had always seemed to watch over those within the manor, a lifeless gaze but imbued with a chilling air. As Poirot stepped into the drawing room, he was met with a scene that could only be described as chaos. A shattered vase lay on the floor, pieces scattered like unsung memories, and Clara Jennings stood at the center of the tempest, her eyes wide with fright. "It has returned," she gasped, pressing her palms to her cheeks, a tempest of emotion swirling within her. "The portrait, it whispers secrets that were meant to remain buried." She glanced toward the painted visage of a somber countenance, a nobleman clad in the fineries of a bygone era, whose very presence had unsettled them all in recent days. "Ah, but mademoiselle," Poirot replied, his voice steady yet soothing, "what whispers are you hearing? All that painting can reveal are brushstrokes of history. We must dive deeper into the canvas of your mind." The storm outside intensified, clattering against the ancient glass windows, sending a shiver down the spines of those present. Alfred, the butler, stood stiffly at the edge of the room, with an expression of unease reflecting his loyalty to the household, while Lord Frederick and Lady Vivian exchanged wary glances, their faces masks of feigned curiosity and concealed dread. "I swear to you, Poirot," Clara insisted, her voice tremorous yet fervent, "the man in that portrait, he bears a striking resemblance to Léon." The gravity of her words sunk into the air, heavy with implication, knitting the brows of the assembled company with worried intrigue. Léon had vanished on the very night a tragic storm swallowed the manor in its tumult. The connection Clara saw ignited a flicker of understanding within Poirot. Was this mere coincidence, or an eerie echo of destinies entwined? With a calmness that belied the turmoil, Poirot approached the painting, the tempest within persistent yet yielding to his presence. "Ah, the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself as he traced the frame with his fingers, his gaze narrowing at the peculiar symbolism hidden beneath centuries of dust. What lies within the soul of an artist carries the wisdom of countless generations. However, he sensed something darker, a mental tether binding the unraveling motives of the inhabitants of this manor. "What do you think of this portrait, Alfred?" Poirot turned to the butler, whose eyes darted nervously from one face to another. "Surely you must have seen it in the presence of those who've roamed these halls." Alfred shifted uneasily, his voice measured yet shaky. "It is merely an old painting, Monsieur Poirot. One ought not to ascribe to it a nature beyond its purpose." "Ah, but that is where you err," Poirot continued, his gaze sharpening like the edge of a knife. "Objects in this manner can expose truths untold, while the whispers of our past always beckon. We must listen closely before the shadows snuff out our chance to learn." The tension hung palpably in the air, and Clara began to pace, her heart thrumming a frantic rhythm. "We must investigate who commissioned that portrait. What legacy ties us all to that likeness?" Increasingly aware of the gravity surrounding Clara's words, Poirot gathered his suspects, each a note in this chilling symphony of secrets. Lord Frederick, with his cool demeanor begging scrutiny, had long harbored ambitions that extended beyond mere familial honors. "You possess a flair for the dramatic, Frederick," Poirot pressed, the candlelight flickering between them, accentuating the lines etched from worry upon the Lord's face. "Might you be well acquainted with the history, perchance?" "History," Frederick scoffed, attempting to mask his incredulity. "Why not leave the past entombed? The shadows of yore must remain undisturbed." His calm faltered, youth overtaken by the weight of denial, and Poirot could see it, the fear lurking beneath Frederick's bravado, like a volatile spring waiting to unleash. Lady Vivian, offering her measured poise to the gathering's discord, interjected lightly, "My dear Poirot, Frederick is merely ensuring we do not excavate that which does not wish to be unearthed. After all, we might unearth skeletons that would rather stay interred." Her smile was a potent mask, deceptive and alluring, yet Poirot caught the almost imperceptible tremor of her fingers. Underlying concerns shimmered behind her fashionable grace. "No, it is precisely because of what may lie beneath the surface that we must investigate," Poirot maintained, his eyes scanning the intricacies of their reactions, reading like one might decipher a well-worn book. "There is a meaning embedded within that likeness, perhaps a lost revelation that holds the key to Leon's disappearance and the truth of your intertwined fates." And so, as the night deepened, Poirot delved deeper into the depths of the manor, probing the archives of memory and shadow-laden corners that had witnessed far too much. He sought meanings in every brushstroke and silence, every flicker of unease and hidden glance, until finally a glimmer of truth dawned, piercing as the first rays of morn through the storm clouds. He returned to the drawing room where Clara clutched the edge of the table, her eyes alive with something more than hope. "Tell us, Poirot, what have you discovered?" As the others gathered closer, anticipation hung heavy in the thickening air. "Ah, my friends," Poirot began, steadying himself before unleashing the torrent of realization. "Our secrets lie not just within the canvas, but the very intentions behind the artist himself. It was not simply meant to memorialize a nobleman, but to tell a story, one that reveals that Leon's likeness is not a reflection of distant memory, but a guise, a deception orchestrated by none other than Alfred, the loyal butler himself." Gasps echoed through the drawing room, and Alfred's face hardened, shadows darting across his eyes. "No, you cannot!" But Poirot was relentless. For who better than the one who serves diligently to orchestrate a facade of loyalty whilst keeping the true machinations of ambition hidden? Alfred stepped back, visibly shaken, as Clara cried out in disbelief, "But why? Why would you betray us? We considered you family." "Ah, but family can oftentimes prove to be the most treacherous of relations." Alfred's voice trembled under the weight of his regret. "I had hoped the painting would keep his secret safe, but fear drove me to madness." The Sardi-Uri final twist echoed as the painted nobleman bore witness to the destruction of trust, revealing the fragile threads connecting each character. A twisted web of ambition, envy, and unintended betrayal that bound them all. As rain trickled down the window panes, Poirot's voice resonated in the silence, a solitary reminder of the darkness within the human heart. "In the depths of deception, my friends, we find the most profound truths, often hidden behind the very portraits we admire." As they stood, Amidst the ruin of their own making, Poirot gently reminded them, "Remember, it is not simply the painted image we should fear, but the scars born beneath. Each outlines a testament to what we dare to conceal." Chapter 8. An Unexpected Ally. The shrill prattle of a broken glass echoed through the grand hall of Addington Manor. As Clara stumbled backward, her eyes widened with horror. The flickering candlelight played tricks on the shadows, weaving a tapestry of fear that seemed to envelop her. "No!" she gasped, clutching her breast as if trying to contain the wild thumping of her heart. On the floor lay the remnants of the portrait's frame, shattered glass glistening like 1,000 tiny daggers aimed at the soul within. In that charged moment, Poirot entered the fray, his sharp mind already piecing together the unraveling threads of the dark tapestry woven around them. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he mused softly, eyes darting to examine each face ever so intently. It was a chaos that transcended mere panic. An emotional tempest flared, swirling around him as he surveyed Clara's tear-stained visage against the backdrop of the suffocating storm raging outside. The room seemed to hold its breath in the wake of a greater chaos. A murder had not just taken place, but rather the cosmos of their lives was spiraling out of control. "The night air bears witness to your grief, mademoiselle," Poirot noted, his voice like velvet, yet laced with an edge of urgency. "But we mustn't linger in despair. There are avenues to explore, paths of inquiry awaiting the keen eye and attentive mind." Clara's trembling hands gripped the edges of the table as she gathered herself, emboldened by Poirot's steadfast presence. As the others, Lord Frederick, Lady Vivian, and Alfred the butler, hovered at the periphery, their expressions formed a strange amalgamation of concern and suspicion. Frederick stood stiffly, his shoulders drawn back, feigning an air of authority while his eyes darted about, as if expecting the darkness to swallow him whole. Lady Vivian, perched elegantly upon the edge of her seat, displayed an unnerving calm, her eyes narrowing like a cat watching the dance of a helpless mouse. And then there was Alfred, pale and trembling, the loyal servant who appeared swallowed by his own thoughts and unspoken dread. "In the shadows of this storm, a more sinister truth lurks," Poirot mused aloud, then fixed his gaze on Clara, drawing her back to the matter at hand. "Tell me, mademoiselle, what led to the destruction of this frame? A mere accident, or is there more beneath the surface?" Clara hesitated, seemingly grappling with emotions too potent for words, before finally murmuring, "I thought I saw him, the man from the portrait, as if he reached out for me." Ah, the spectral echoes of the past can often stir the deepest fears and unresolved yearnings, Poirot replied, his mind churning. The puzzle pieces lay scattered. He could feel the weight of tensions tangling like vines. Alfred, though usually composed, was now frayed at the edges. "But tell me, Alfred," he probed gently, "you were possibly present when this incident transpired. Is there a morsel of insight you might extend?" The butler took a step back, his expression shifting nervously. "It is not my place to meddle, Monsieur Poirot. The estate itself has seen too much in its time. The painting's history is best left undisturbed." His defensiveness bred unease among the group, and Poirot's brow furrowed with suspicion. Days passed, and the heavy air of suspicion hung like a thick mist. Poirot worked tirelessly, scrutinizing every minor detail. In the quiet, he examined the remnants of the shattered glass and the splattered paint, which revealed a haunting message. Art was a reflection of its creator's deepest secrets, and what these portraits concealed might instead rebuke them. During a chance encounter, a peculiar ally emerged. Caroline, the EU housemaid, approached Poirot in the late hours of the night, her brow gleaming with perspiration as she shifted uncomfortably. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, her voice trembling, "there's something I must reveal, but I fear for my own safety. You may see the truth beneath the surface." Her eyes darted towards the doors, ensuring no one lingered nearby. "A brave choice, mademoiselle," Poirot replied quietly, his demeanor shifting from interrogator to confidant. "What whispers does the wind? Bring this night." Caroline leaned closer. It concerns the portrait. The artist knew more than he let on about Lord Frederick and Lady Vivian. They gathered every night, hoping for some dark legacy to surface from the depths, a treasure they could claim for themselves. Her voice trembled. Alfred was never truly one of us. That painting binds him to a fate intertwined with theirs. With this unsolicited revelation, Poirot's mind raced, piecing together a muddled scheme obscured by their deceptions. A dark legacy threatened to surface, but it lay not just in the past but within the very hearts of those who had claimed to uphold honor. Yet just as he began to form a cohesive theory, a shocking turn of events took place. A letter surfaced, hastily penned and carelessly hidden beneath the floorboard of the drawing room. The contents revealed a hidden affair, a connection between Lady Vivian and the artist himself. The web of secrets spun tighter still. Each character's duplicity began to collapse under its own weight. Back in the drawing room, Poirot gathered them once more, tension pulsing in the air, as palpable as the storm outside. "What do we have here?" he began, holding the letter aloft like an offering, and the colors drained from Lady Vivian's cheeks. "A correspondence, intimate in nature. It seems Benjamin Aldridge, the artist of the cursed portrait, shared not only brushstrokes but an emotional narrative with you. Ah, the duality of trust and betrayal, so finely interwoven." Vivian's composure faltered, and she exploded into a vehement denial. "You are mistaken, Poirot. How dare you insinuate such things?" But before she could gather her scattered thoughts to refute the accusations, Poirot turned to Alfred. "And you, dear Alfred, how does this change your own calculations? The artist was but a pawn in your game too, was he not? Your loyalty was always to the shadows." As stifling silence settled, it pierced through with haunting clarity. Clara's fingers trembled, her world collapsing as shadows flickered around them, revealing unshed tears. The revelation cut deep within the group. It was the embodiment of familial ties which do not bind but betray. In that harrowing moment, Poirot connected the dots, revealing the depth of Alicia's duplicity, the extent of Alfred's treachery, and the grim realities that had molded this doomed ensemble. His voice rang clear above the tempest, echoing throughout the manor. In the depths of sorrow and betrayal, what do we discover? The scars we conceal shall forever etch our existence, revealing the lengths to which we go to protect ourselves from the decisions of the heart. The storm outside grew quieter, but the weight of the truths unveiled within those walls would reverberate for all eternity, leaving shadows in their wake. Dark reminders of the sins borne forth by hidden alliances and unexpected foes. This was no mere resolution, but a somber testament to the complexities of the human spirit. As he exited, Poirot left them trapped within the confines of their own making, forever bearing witness to the tales woven within Addington Manor. Chapter 9. The Thorny Path Ahead. The wind howled against the ancient stone of Addington Manor, echoing like a tortured soul moaning through the night. Shadows danced wickedly on the walls, agile phantoms stirred by the flickering candlelight that barely held its ground against the tempest outside. It was in this harrowing atmosphere that the palpable scent of betrayal clung like thick fog, smothering any hint of solace within the opulent rooms. The storm's ferocity mirrored the turmoil unraveling within the very hearts of those gathered inside, every flicker of light whispering secrets that sought to escape. Poirot, perched regally in a cushioned armchair, surveyed the faces before him with a calculating gaze. They were etched with tension and masked by forced resolve. Each of them had their motives, and the thickening air of suspicion coiled tighter with every passing moment. Clara, her tear-stained visage betraying her fragile spirit, sat clutching a porcelain teacup as if it might offer her protection from the lethal whispers that swirled around her. "It cannot be true," she murmured softly, struggling to process the chaos that had entered her life uninvited. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot replied, his words enveloped in a velvet calm that contrasted sharply with the shrill undertones of the gathering storms both inside and outside. Yet beneath that calm demeanor, Poirot's mind raced, perceiving the faintest of clues against the backdrop of raw emotion. This was not a mere case of murder or betrayal. It was a dark tapestry woven with threads of despair, avarice, and unmasked identities. As the group settled into a tense silence, Poirot turned his scrutiny toward Alfred, the butler with eyes that flickered like the candles, revealing inner turmoil beyond the facade of loyalty he had maintained. You claim your intentions were noble, yet I sense a deeper disquiet beneath your placid surface, Alfred, he prodded, drawing curious glances that flicked back and forth like daggers. The butler shifted uneasily, hiding the storm of regrets that churned behind his stoic facades. Then there was Lady Vivian, who seemed strangely composed amidst the unraveling chaos, her regal posture an echo of unyielding pride. Yet her narrowed eyes betrayed a flicker of something, darker perhaps resentment or guilt, emotions that simmered beneath her elegant exterior. Simply because you fancy yourself a detective, Poirot, does not grant you dominion over the truths we bury, she snapped, her cool demeanor cracking like thin ice. And finally, Lord Frederick, proud and authoritative, harbored an undercurrent of desperation. His airs of superiority began to falter as the storm rallied outside, surging like the tempest of suspicion that hung over the assembly. We did not endanger ourselves willingly. The past has a way of haunting us, just as your inquiries do, Poirot, he uttered, his voice laced with an ominous edge, revealing layers of a man cornered. In that charged silence, it felt as though the very walls of Addington Manor were closing in, pulsating with the secrets they each held. The night deepened, and Poirot steered his investigations with meticulous grace. Poking and prodding, he sensed emotional currents and glimpsed fragments of fractured truths, bathed in obfuscation. He examined the shattered remains of the portrait frame, the glass shards sharp reminders of what transpired in that moment of chaos. There was a story woven into that destruction, a message echoed through the remnants that begged to be untangled. Hours spun on, shifting like shadows recast upon the walls, yet the secrets remained elusive. Poirot interlaced questions with careful precision, his gaze darting among the three suspects, who each flinched at their own responses. He asked Lady Vivian of her late-night excursions, her alibis aligning too neatly, but always professing her innocence, perhaps too passionately. Her frustration swelled as she insisted that it wasn't merely child's play mudding her name. An artist's love does not equal the crime of a betrayer, he interjected calmly, watching her composure tremble just a touch at the mention of her connection with the painter. Yet Poirot remained keenly aware that the truth often lay obscured beneath layers of reliance and fear. The air thickened with emotions, and the revelations began to unfold slowly. A misplaced letter here, a tense overture there, threads that would tighten only to snap under scrutiny somehow. It felt as though everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something terrible to break loose. Suddenly it happened. Caroline approached Poirot again, shadows clinging to her as she emerged like a hesitant specter. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I have heard whispers, confessions in the corridors of this manor. They speak of a pact, an agreement born from desperation, but my fear runs deep. It is not merely a secret, but a plan that could upend everything we hold dear." With this revelation, the game shifted, tearing apart at the seams. Poirot deduced connections made in shadows and gasps, his mind racing against the brewing storm of treachery. As alliances formed and then shattered under scrutiny, he suspected a deeper layer beneath the palpable mistrust, something darker than mere ambition. As the night unfurled its menacing cloak, the house trembled. Poirot gathered them once more, calling forth their secrets through sharp inquiries. Each suspect became a puppet dancing upon strings of paranoia, revealing layers of duplicity within duplicity itself. Yet just as he began to weave the tapestry of their intertwined fates, an unexpected twist unfurled. Clara, seeking to shield her own secrets, boldly accused Alfred of a far more sinister pact, bringing chaos back into the fold. "Ah, but was it truly betrayal, my dear?" Poirot interjected coolly, navigating this web carefully. "Or might we find allegiance where we least expect it?" At that moment of revelation, the maiden's expression shifted from righteous anger to anguished uncertainty, and Poirot's intuition sharpened, sensing the shifting sands beneath their feet. In the denouement, the room erupted in vehement accusations, spiraling toward despair. But Poirot, ever perspicacious, distilled the words to their essence, revealing the threads connecting every lie. In this thorny path ahead, dear friends, we confront not merely the betrayals of today, but the legacies weaved into the very fabric of our beings, he concluded, eyes gleaming with understanding of his own. With the final pieces assembled, he delivered the final blow. The painter, dear Lady Vivian, was but a reflection of your own desire for control over memories lost. Therein lies your shared bond with our departed artist. As the storm outside dwindled, its echo persisted within the manor walls, revealing the burdens borne by souls unwilling to bear the truth of their connections. Poirot took his leave amidst the wreckage of their hearts, where shadows lingered, leaving behind a statement that would forever echo through the hallowed halls of Addington Manor. In our relentless quest for love, integrity, and ambition, we must never forget that the thorns of our existence often bear the sweetest blooms of unforeseen consequence. Chapter 10. Shadows of Betrayal. The candle flickered ominously as a piercing scream shattered the oppressive silence of the ancient manor, echoing through the corridors like a death knell. The tempest outside raged, its fury somehow meeting the chaos within, making the very foundations of Addington Manor tremble. Poirot, poised in the drawing room amidst the splintered shadows, felt the thick fog of dread hang palpably in the air. Something sinister had transpired, and its tendrils reached deep into the hearts of those gathered. Clara, her face pale and tear-streaked, stood frozen near the entrance, the remnants of shock coiling around her like a serpent. The body of Lord Frederick lay sprawled grotesquely across the room, a crimson bloom spreading from his chest, a brutal act of betrayal. A dagger, artfully fashioned and marked with familial insignia, glimmered cruelly in the dying candlelight, drawing the eyes of the assembled guests like moths to a flame. Poirot sensed the tremors of secrets vibrating through the walls. Every soul present felt the weight of accusation hang heavily in the air. As the storm outside raged with fervor, Poirot's sharp mind swiftly calculated the implications of Lord Frederick's demise. His thoughts spun like a fine thread. Each character before him shimmered with concealed motivations and treachery. Lady Vivian, standing stiffly to one side, clutched her pearls, her composure intact, but strain evident beneath her poised demeanor. "He was my husband," she reiterated, voice quivering. "Who would dare do such a monstrous act?" Alfred, the loyal butler, stood several steps behind her, his eyes betraying a flicker of panic. "Permit me to gather the authorities, my lady. We must alert Inspector Green immediately." The cloak of dispassion he wore had begun to fray, revealing shadows of something deeper lurking just beneath. Meanwhile, Clara's gaze darted from face to anguished face, desperately searching for a sense of innocence amongst the growing tide of suspicions. Yet there among the onlookers, Caroline lingered in the background, a specter of secrets that had thrived in the dark corners of the manor, her demeanor ever shifting like the shadows that enveloped her. Poirot's discerning gaze swept across the room. "Ah, mes amis, the weft of the human heart is woven with threads of both love and deception," he mused quietly, contemplating the tangled web of relationships laid out before him. Each person bore their own burdens, desires masked by civility, and betrayals cloaked in participation. He tucked this observation away to ponder it in greater detail later, for the fabric of this tragic night had barely begun to unravel. As the wind howled outside, Poirot donned his thinking cap, aligning fragments of motive with heinous acts. He called forth each suspect with the precision of an orchestra conductor. "My dear Lady Vivian," he began, his voice steady yet finely edged, "what say you of your rather strained relationships with both your husband and his acquaintances?" Vivian's eyes flared with indignation, her meticulous veneer beginning to crack. "What vile insinuation is this, Poirot? Frederick was a man of principle." Yet beneath her fierce protest lay festering resentment, buried under layers of unspoken grievances. Poirot noted the twitch of her fingers, a detail that would not escape his attention. Turning to Alfred, he studied the butler's trembling hands as he rearranged the aged books upon the mantel, as if looking for solace among the pages. "Bon ami," the detective addressed. "Your loyalty is admirable, but what of your disquiet? What secrets do you tuck away amongst the dust of these tomes?" "Secrets? I have none," Alfred replied, a touch too quickly, his voice tighter than the storm battering at the windows. Poirot watched, the tension rising as the truth danced just beyond their reach. There was something behind those worried eyes, some connection to the dagger perhaps, or even to the late Lord Frederick's tangled affairs. Shadows danced along the silk-clad walls, whispering confessions, bathing Poirot in possibilities. As the inquiries continued, Caroline's apprehension transformed into furtive glances, her own hidden truths wearing her thin. This is all madness," she muttered, biting down on her bottom lip. Her eyes darted toward Clara, and Poirot noted an unsettling undercurrent deepening between them. Friendships could morph to enmities with but a whisper of bitterness. As the night deepened and the flames flickered defiantly, Poirot discerned the calculated exchanges, a pebble in the current. Whispers cascaded through the manor like chilling breezes, and deception seemed to curl around Clara. An innocent caught within bolts of lightning flashing through the windows. Her connection, however innocent, with Lord Frederick's past entanglements, did raise questions. "Your thoughts remain locked away, dear Clara. Were you not privy to words shared in darkness? Perhaps there repose fragments of truth, or even betrayal." Her expression hardened momentarily, a subtle defiance igniting behind her tear-stained facade. "You cannot accuse me, Poirot. I cared for him, as did many. Are we to suffer suspicion simply for affection?" The desperation that twisted her voice echoed through the quiet moments left tense by the storm's persistence. Finally, Poirot stilled the rising tide of emotions with a calmness wrought from experience. "It is apparent that deeper shadows linger in these walls. Each of you bears fragments of connection to the deed. The path leads muddy, like a river steeped in treachery." A pause, and then the realization dawned. A red herring flared briefly in his intellect, only to dissipate like the smoke from extinguished candles. Clara's hand grasped the dagger, seemingly absent-mindedly, and Poirot's heart raced as suspicion honed in like a wayward arrow. "Mon ami, is it fear binding you to this weapon, or trust that has become distorted?" With sudden force she refuted. "What are you implying, Poirot? Can you truly believe I would betray him?" Yet the fervor of her denial only deepened the rift of doubt hanging in the air. Then Poirot fixed his gaze upon Lady Vivian, her stillness betraying layers of well-guarded emotion. "Ah, but therein lies the matter," the detective posited with calm assurance. "Did you not realize that your own suffering may harbor an unknowable bond with the plight of Frederick? And perhaps—" He paused dramatically. "The dagger that has claimed his life speaks of not just affection, but a deeper betrayal woven into the very fabric of your shared existence?" The truth exploded within the room, and silence followed its wake. The eyes of each suspect blazed with a new understanding, unveiling the interconnected darkness that resided within each heart. Poirot, ever steady, delivered the final blow. It was the betrayal of love and ambition that dared this darkness, a bond forged in secret yet shattered in intent. In the dim light, as shadows flickered like spirits of the past, the realization crystallized amongst them. Each sin was a mirror holding the reflections of their own culpability. Poirot's voice echoed in their minds long after he had finished speaking, a haunting reminder ringing clear in their hearts. In the realm of shadows, it is not only the sins we commit that bind us, but the silent cries of the innocent lost beneath them. As the storm subsided and the dawn crested the horizon, it left only the emptiness of betrayal lurking in the hallways of Addington Manor, echoing the unspoken truths that would resonate into eternity. Chapter 11. The green door unlocked. A chilling howl reverberated through the grand halls of Addington Manor, akin to a melancholic dirge sung by the wind. As the storm unleashed its fury outside, a lantern flickered ominously in the otherwise dim drawing room, casting elongated shadows dancing upon the walls. In their restless motion, they appeared to depict the very essence of unease that pervaded the estate. Poirot stood amidst the twilight gloom, his keen eyes narrowing as he beheld a sight that struck a shiver straight to his core. A green door, previously thought sealed, now stood ajar, its frame hinting at secrets that should have remained locked away. He recalled the hushed conversations, the fearful glances exchanged, each laden with the unspoken promise of unspeakable deeds tied to that very door. It beckoned him like a siren, whispering secrets from the past, and the detective could almost feel the weight of the air shift as he approached. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured, steeling his resolve for what lay beyond. As he crossed the threshold, the atmosphere thickened, charged with a tension that transcended mere dread. The room beyond was shrouded in darkness, an oppressive silence hovered, interrupted only by the quiet drip of water from a nascent leak, echoing like the ticking of a clock. An aura of despair enveloped the space, and as he surveyed the area, he glimpsed three figures crouched in palpable fear, straining against the shadows they harbored. Vivian, still dressed in her mourning attire, stood rigid, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes brimmed with something more profound than sorrow. Was it guilt, perhaps? Beneath the elegant facade lay a tumult of emotions, each vying for supremacy. Beside her, Alfred, the butler, reeked of anxiety, his hands trembling as they fiddled incessantly with the lapel of his jacket. There was something disquieting in his gaze, a darting glance that flitted like a moth seeking refuge in darkness. Finally, there stood Clara, her features marred by despair, as though grief had worn her spirit thin. "What is this place?" she gasped, her eyes wide with turmoil. Poirot's attention sharpened, each line uttered laden with significance as he moved closer to the murky corners of the room. "But you see, mes amis, in this very space lies the echo of mysteries unsolved," he remarked, his voice smooth yet edged with urgency. "A door once thought closed reveals the heaviness of our past, the weight of our intertwined fates." The trio exchanged glances, fear threading through their collective stillness as Poirot began his inquiries. "Lady Vivian, your presence indicates an attachment to this chamber of memories. Might you share the tale of its origin?" The question drew out a hesitant breath before it spiraled into the air, settling heavy upon their hearts. "It was once a sanctuary," Vivian replied softly, her composure faltering. "A place I entrusted to Frederick's artistry. But since his death, it has been a repository of his secrets, haunting me with shadows that threaten to consume." The pain in her voice resonated, yet Poirot was not swayed by mere sentiment. "Indeed," he replied, noting the slight quiver of her hands. "But what of you, Alfred? Your loyalty carries burdened shadows. Have you not ventured behind this verdant facade?" The butler, startled, flinched at the directness of the inquiry. "No, I swear it. That door should be left alone," he blurted, his denial sounding hollow amidst the despair. With purposeful strides, Poirot approached Clara at the back of the room, her manicured nails digging into her palms. "And you, dear Clara, what voices did you hear calling from these walls? Were your ties not intertwined deeper than mere affection?" She swallowed hard, a visceral tension simmering in her throat. I did care for him, yes. But this investigation, you must believe me, I stand innocent in this tangled web." But her conviction wavered under the weight of suspicion. Poirot stirred. As the storm outside intensified, cloaking the manor in shades of uncertainty, Poirot began to piece together the fragmented stories, layering them against the looming specter of death. He guided their exchanges adeptly, each response unveiling a new facet of treachery hidden beneath civility. Lady Vivian's delicate composure cracked further, the facade of grief lifting slightly to reveal a woman grappling with unspoken anger and regret. Alfred's hands continued their nervous dance, trembling with the anxiety of a man tied to both service and betrayal. And Clara, filled with fervent denial, presented herself as a woman entangled in love's volatile embrace, yet potent. Emotions carried their risk, their potential for destruction. The night wore on, the shadows lengthening as Poirot shifted focus deftly. "But what of our dear artist, Lord Frederick? Through the darkness of memory, is there not light lingering on the edges of our hearts? Perhaps the dagger was not merely a weapon of malice, but a tool wielding deeper truths?" An unsettling silence fell within the room, only to be fractured by Clara's tearful admission. He spoke of things he wished to forget, of his past coming back to haunt him. Her confession hung somberly, punctuated by the damp drumming of rain against the stout window panes, sending ripples of foreboding through the gathered company. I began to fear for his life, uncertainty gnawing at my soul. Poirot's mind worked feverishly, considering the implications. He had gleaned but mere fragments, each one a flicker of light against a backdrop of encroaching darkness. Yet like the tide surging against the craggy shore, he could feel a swell of something darker yet beneath their surface, a deception manifesting from fear and guilt alike. As the candlelight flickered low, he turned once more to confront them, poised for revelation. Ah, but are we not entangled in a tapestry woven by the hands of fate? You see, each of you bore witness to Lord Frederick's demise. Each of you shares a connection, an emotion lurking just beneath the skin. A realization dawned upon him. The door had whispered truths long entombed. And yet it was the very depth of loyalty that heralded betrayal. Upon this revelation, the atmosphere grew thick, charged with the palpable shift in their demeanor. Each suspect's expression morphed, the mask of innocence shattering under Poirot's unwavering scrutiny. The walls, once silent and compliant, began to echo their deepest fears, amplifying their secrets. It was in that disquieted stillness that the next twist unfurled. Conflicting emotions stirred in Clara's eyes, the purity of her affection marred by jealousy of the bond Vivienne shared with Frederick. And then there was Alfred, his steadfast loyalty a veil that had cloaked his own ambitions toward Lady Vivienne. Ah, mon ami, Poirot mused softly to himself. Betrayal can often sprout from the very roots of passion. As unspent breath caught in their throats, Poirot unleashed his final assertion. The sin was not merely the act, but the cruelty of silence that allowed such pain to fester. The green door, an emblem of crushed hope, now stands ajar, revealing what should have remained hidden. With the finality of truth resonating among them, he stepped back, his tone shifting to a melancholy distillation of wisdom. In the embrace of shadows lies the very heart of our transgressions, to each a lesson wreathed in sorrow. For it is the truth, too often sought and seldom given freely, that resonates with the deepest emotions. As the storm quelled, drenching the earth in its aftermath, Poirot gazed upon the three figures, each silhouette crafted by their choices, poised against their deeds' repercussions. The echoes of this stormy night would linger in Addington Manor long after they had parted, a potent reminder that within their hearts lay the echoes of lost trust, a vigorous tapestry of betrayal now irrevocably frayed. Chapter 12. The Final Act of Deception. A blood-curdling scream shattered the stillness of Addington Manor, reverberating through its hallowed halls like the clanging of a funeral bell. The storm outside surged, rain lashing against the windows as if the heavens themselves grieved for the fallen. Shadows flickered and danced upon the walls. Where once laughter had reigned, now death prowled with a sinister grace. Amidst this atmosphere of dreadful anticipation, Poirot stood poised, his own heart thrumming with an urgency fueled by the looming darkness. He had delved into the depths of betrayal, yet the tangled skein of deceit had revealed only a fraction of its hidden truths. Our surviving inhabitants of the manor found themselves ensnared in a web of terror and guilt, their pasts resurfacing like unwelcome ghosts in the chilling air. Yet it was on this haunting night that the final act of deception would unveil itself, illuminating the darkness. As the scream dissipated into an unsettling silence, Poirot adjusted his bow tie and turned his attention to the trembling figures before him, each marionette strung by the precarious threads of mistrust. Lady Vivienne, her pallor heightened to ghostly brilliance, stood rigid, her hands clasped tightly as if warding off unseen forces. Beside her stood Alfred, the butler, his features drawn with fright, eyes darting like a cornered animal. And in the shadows Clara lingered, her body trembling, her posture defensive. The weight of accusation sat heavy upon her slender shoulders. "Mon ami," Poirot began, his voice a soothing balm against the turmoil, "we find ourselves entwined in a grave tableau, one that calls forth memories best left buried. Pray, Recount to me the events leading to that harrowing cry which echoed through this manor." As Vivian opened her mouth to explain, a chilling gust breezed through the room, extinguishing the nearby candle that had provided the only flicker of light. Darkness enveloped them, a suffocating shroud, and with it came an overwhelming sense of foreboding. "It is but a trick of the wind," she attempted to dismiss, although her gaze darted back toward the ominous green door, a portal to secrets best left untouched. "I fear, dear Lady Vivian, that the wind carries with it more than mere breezes tonight," Poirot countered, his voice steady as steel. "Consider the echoes of those who have traversed this threshold before." Each character's pulse quickened, the implication of Poirot's words resonating with the illusions they had woven to protect themselves. Alfred, sensing the scrutiny, blurted, "It was merely the house, monsieur. The old stones creak and moan as they do." "Yet, can the house cry in despair, my good Alfred?" Poirot interjected, sending a shiver through the butler's spine. "What sin lies nestled in the very marrow of these walls that prompts a horrific wail?" As the storm raged, Poirot began his investigation. With the delicate manner of an artist, he examined the scene, taking in every trifling detail his keen mind encountered. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he had mused to himself. Why did Clara fidget as she stood closest to the door? Was it merely the discomfort of secrets, or a knowledge that ran deeper? "Clara," he implored, his gaze unwavering, "what do you harbor beneath that fragile facade?" I only wished for his safety," she stammered, nearly to the point of tears. Frederick had spoken of the past haunting him, and I feared for his life. Vivian's lips curled into a bitter smile, her eyes glistening with something akin to bitterness beneath her poised exterior. "You claim to seek his welfare, Clara, yet you never managed to protect him from the very shadows that consumed him." She shot back, an accusatory finger raised. "Silence!" Alfred demanded, his voice commanding yet tinged with a tremor. "You know not what is invoked when you speak of shadows, Lady Vivian. Perhaps you have more to answer for than innocent affection?" The tension escalated, fluttering hearts quickening under the strain of accusation. Poirot remained calm, pensive, observing the interplay, and yet he felt a tremor of unease. Perhaps there lies a deeper truth here. Each of you enmeshed in webs spun by the very emotions entwining your hearts. Betrayal stained by love, is it not? As they launched into a tumultuous exchange, stunned revelations seeped like poison, a palpable discomfort lingering in the atmosphere. Poirot understood now that what was claimed to be desire was but a mask for jealousy and ambition. Yet amidst the cacophony, one voice momentarily rose. Above the rest, a voice proclaiming to hold the key to the night's dreadful occurrence. "I know what truly happened," Clara interjected breathlessly, the words spilling forth with a fervor that caught the attention of all present. Frederick, he had unearthed something from his past, a letter that bore the weight of his greatest secret. He intended to share it, but too late did I realize. Someone wished to silence him. The confessions hung heavy in the air, echoing long after her voice dwindled. Poirot's mind swirled with newfound urgency. Could it have been a fear of revelation that drove the dagger deeper into Frederick's heart? He pressed forward, piecing the puzzle together amidst their hasty denials. But as he pursued further examination, he stumbled upon a glimmer of truth veiled beneath disarray. That letter, it could hold the key, secrets entwined with loyalty and ambition, poised to lash out at the heart of their lives. Suddenly another scream pierced the manor, this one echoing with sheer horror from beyond the green door. The room froze, breaths caught in throats parched by fear. "Mon Dieu, what now?" Poirot began, but the moment encapsulated him, melding dread with urgency. With swift resolve, the detective strode toward the green door, flinging it wide open. Inside, half buried beneath the dust of forgotten memories, lay an album. Open, revealing cursed images that held enough power to unravel destinies. Here lay Frederick's legacy, handwritten letters, adorned with a betrayal that struck like a dagger's thrust. Names, dates, secrets embroidered within ink, painting portraits of doomed souls entwined through love and malice. It became tragically clear the love they had cherished had devolved into a desperate void filled with deception. Turning to the trio, manifesting despair, Poirot narrowed his focus. "And thus we unravel the tangled skeins of fate," he intoned softly, allowing each word to settle. "Clara, you sought to guard him from those seeking to harm, yet your very love could have become the dagger." "No, I loved him," she cried, desperation fueling her denial. "And Lady Vivian, your dreams were tainted by jealousy, your shadow affectionate yet cruel," Poirot observed, his voice unwavering. "But it was Alfred's loyalty, laced with ambition, that may have led to the defilement of your trust." The butler quaked but stepped forward, wearing fear like a mask. I merely wished for the respect I deserve." Yet the allegations pierced the air unyieldingly, curiosity spiraling into accusations heavy with weight. "Ah, but who truly cast the first stone?" Poirot inquired, his gaze fixed upon the trembling trio. For the dagger was never merely that. It was the truth mixed with betrayal, pulsing through your veins. As their inner darkness unraveled in that dim glow, Poirot turned, revealing one final twist, an emotional revelation that bound them irrevocably. Yet it is Clara who had received the letter intended for Frederick, the one written in agony, that drove you all to the edge. The dagger was a mere tool for a far more lamentable crime, betrayal of the heart. With each thread pulled and revelation unveiled, tears streamed as betrayal snared their hearts, shaking the foundations of love they believed they had shared. Poirot's eyes mirrored sorrow etched in the fabric of their reality. This was not merely a mystery of murder, but an unmasking of the soul. In the mournful aftermath, the silence lay thick and heavy upon them, the shadows closing ranks as the storm outside settled into an eerie calm. Poirot's final words offered an echo that would linger. In every love, there exists a shadow. In every shadow, a betrayal waits to unfold. Within this dark night, lessons eternally writ. Find the truth, lest the dagger strikes again. The echoes of their actions entwined with the essence of Addington Manor, resigned to endure the memories of ghosts simply too profound to forget.